Yeah, it's
Can you
showing
see?
now.
Okay, awesome. So here is what I've been working on. I've been collecting up every quarter. What is the rocket launch revenue? What is the space systems revenue? They don't break out the gross margin of these. I was really looking for it, so I never got that. Then this is their total revenue. You can see it's an absolute beautiful growth beast. Also with their this last two is their forecast, right? So you can see we start here with 11, and in quarters, this is not years. So in a few quarters, like what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In 11 quarters, we go over 100 million. Supposedly, it still has to happen. But then I wanted to try to get to some sort of evaluation. So based on the quarterly breakouts, I broke out the rocket launch part, and then the space systems part, and then I made some assumptions, and then so this is first. Let's take it piece by piece. So I counted the okay, the 2023 is based on this year. 2024 estimate is based on 22 Neutron launches, and it's like 22 times 7.5 million, because they said that the launch is going to be 7.5 million. So I guess you can agree with this number, right?
Yeah, you said a neutron, but you meant electron. I understand.
Yeah, exactly. But then in next year, like I do calculate with 25 electron launches and 2 times 55 million for the neutron. And you can see it's an insane growth. So this obviously, I'm giving, let's say a half a year, or yeah, like a 4-month delay window I'm giving to the neutron. And there's only 2 launches in 2025 and 25 electron launches, and you get an almost 100% jump in the revenue. Then in 2026, I'm calculating with 30 electron launches and 4 neutron. And then in 2027, 35 electron and 6 neutron. You can see that I'm very slowly scaling. Then still 35, because I basically think that neutron or electron might tap out at this level, because maybe neutron is eating into. So if you have customers that need to repeat send up the same satellites over and over and over again, it's maybe easier to collect them together in a neutron. And then I added 9 neutrons, and then in 2029 it's 13 neutrons, and then in 2030 it's 16 neutrons. And do you think that these numbers are crazy optimistic, crazy pessimistic? Because I'm thinking that we do this valuation sort of together. Also, people in the comments can chime in, but I can't see them. So if you could see if somebody's chiming in with some assumptions or thoughts on this, then let me know.
I would say that for the launch segment, I think the revenue is about what I would have it as, and I think it's pretty on par. The only one that I think might be a little bit different for me is maybe the 2025. I don't know if I would have 2 neutrons. I might have 1, but I think it all depends. Like even if your neutron cadence is off, maybe electron is better. So my thought process is like maybe you're underselling the electron growth here and overselling the neutron, but I think it would potentially even out to a good extent.
Yeah.
So I think that my revenues, I'll pull up what I have in the background, but I think our revenues are very similar. I
Okay.
don't
Okay.
necessarily have as much for neutron, but I think overall it's similar.
Yeah, I mean, because the valuation is going to be a pretty big valuation. So I like, if we just are in the same ballpark, it means that we're thinking the same. Obviously, the valuation you do is always wrong. The question is just how wrong is it? It's like basically impossible to forecast 10 years out with like 100% accuracy. So as long as I'm in the same ballpark as you, I'm very, very happy. And I don't know if people are chiming in the comments. I cannot see it. I'm very curious if they have any other viewpoints of I'm too pessimistic, too optimistic, or something should change?
I think that they're just saying the only person that's really commented is like one of them, and they basically said that they think the space systems part, which we'll get into in just a second, has a bigger opportunity to grow than maybe what you have here.
So thank you for saying that. Really, thank you for saying that, because look, you have the 2021 number, 23 million. Then the 2022 number is 150 million. Already a crazy jump, but I think that that also has to do with that they still kept acquiring new companies under 2022. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison. The 2023 estimate that they gave is a less than 20% increase. And then, as I said, I really wanted to grab into any projections what I can think, and in the end I said that okay, in 2024 they will do 195 million, which is, that number is just out of my ass. And then after that I went that it's 25% per year increase. And here I really like, if anybody has any other data, please let me know. And Matt, if you do, or I'm curious how you would think about this part.
I don't know.
Because I'm trying to hold it conservative, right? I'm trying to not go like all crazy bull here.
So my 2030 number is a little bit more bullish, but mine needs to be updated. So I think mine's probably 2 years ahead of schedule just based off of cadence. So I end up in 2028, mine looks like it's about not space systems alone, but just all together. So I guess with space systems about
This is
600
all
million.
together.
Yeah, so mine gets to about 2 billion in 2028, which I think I need to delay mine by about 2 years, because I think originally I was thinking we were going to be on pace for 24 launches this quarter, and it's probably going to end up being closer to 22 next year. So I think mine's just a little bit optimistic, because we had 11 launches in 2022, and we're going to end up with 11 launches in 2023 as well. So yeah, I think I just need to update mine a little bit, but I think that we're roughly the same, give or take a year or two. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's too astronomical, but the pace for space systems, I'm not 100% sure how to value it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same here. And if anybody knows anything about it, please, you're welcome in the comments to help us out on this. But let's say that we go with this 25% a year, which I also think is there can be a lot of upside surprises here, because if they get in, these mega constellations that they, because like I give you a scenario, like in this book, when the heavens went on sale, like the writer talks about that when you have satellites in low Earth orbit, they basically, because there is still a little bit of atmospheric drag in that height, so the satellites start deorbiting after 4 to 5 years, right? So if you have like an Amazon Kuiper mega constellation that is, I don't know, 7,000 satellites, it means that, and let's say it takes you 5 years to shoot them up, so that's like 1,500 per year. Then after 5-6 years, like the first ones that you shot up, they will start deorbiting, right? So it becomes like a continuous, like it doesn't become like a one-time sale. It becomes that you constantly need to upkeep the mega constellation, right? And that's, I think, potentially huge contracts if they get a few mega constellations, maybe even by the army, by Amazon, maybe some other companies that are in this business. So I completely agree that this might be very, very under calculated. And even with this very big under calculation, so this is where you see the total revenue. And here you can see the year-over-year growth of the total revenue. And here you can see the numbers, but it's basically given from the electron, neutron, and the space system. So it's not that I'm multiplying the revenue Yeah, you understand. So it's calculated backwards. So now the major second question is, what is their operating profit in 2030? So I think I'm very conservative here, because if you have a launch business that is giving you a 50% gross margin, then you should have, I think, a 20-25% profit margin on your operating margin. If then the satellite business, if your gross margins, I think Solera was the lowest gross margin, which was at 30%, like below 30% that they were fixing. I think, yeah, the operating margin, I think, might be over 20-25%. What I chose to calculate with 15%. Do you think that's too high, too low? What do you think about that?
I think it's sufficient for now. I mean, I think it'll eventually grow bigger, probably closer to 20 to 25%, like you said. But I think 15 for a starting point would be okay.
Okay. So if we agree on the 15, then from the almost 2 billion, the operating profit would be 283 million per year. And if you put a 40 multiple on that, which I think is very reasonable for a company that still has a lot of runway ahead of them. Obviously, we can play with that number. I get a market cap of 11.31 billion, which is very, very surprising to me, because I was trying to keep my calculations very low, very based, pessimistic, and I still got a huge, huge number. And what are your thoughts, and what is the audience thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I think the pace at which you expand Neutron, I think, might be a little exaggerated. But like I said, I don't think you're giving Electron enough credit during that. So I think that's offset. Space Systems, it's hard. So I think, being rather conservative on that is okay. I honestly do think that the net income margin will get closer to 25%. But I think even still, with what we have today, with the data that we have today, and the uncertainty on how quickly we're going to be able to launch Neutron, as well as the scale at which, the long-term scale at which we're planning on getting Electron through, is, I think that that's a pretty good valuation, and I think that that is reasonable for where I think that it's going. Where I think that if this company truly becomes um, a better than life opportunity, like I think it could be, right? Which, I always kind of like to be a little bit more risk averse, but I think that this could have the opportunity to do really, really well. Then you're building way higher off of that 11 billion, right? You're starting to expand more in the launch systems and stuff of the like. So I think either way, you're going to be expanding at a pretty rapid pace. I mean, it was probably closer to like a 20 to 25% compound annual growth rate, if I remember correctly. So um, it's about on pace with what I was expecting. So I'm curious, really, where it ends up. But I think for now, with the data that we have, I think that that's plausible. I think it's not too over exaggerated, nor is it too conservative. But I'm curious to see what the folks in the chat say.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for the people in the chat, let's take now. So this was like the bullish viewpoint, right? But now let's poke holes into it, and like, where is the risk? Like, what can go wrong that messes up my calculation? So obviously we can get a major delay on neutrons. So I mean, in the space industry, like if we, if you look at Falcon Heavy, Falcon 1, Astra, the ULA's Star liner, or whatever it's called, all of them is years delayed. Now, the Neutron has been, I was actually quite surprised that today when I opened up the first public presentation that Rocket Lab had, it had Neutron in it already. And I was like, shit, it's not I thought they're speed running through this process. And I'm like, no, they already, when they went public, they were already thinking with a Neutron, and that was in 2021. So it will be, 3 to 4 years by next year in development. But if, let's say, let's say it's 3 years delayed, but then the cadence is a lot higher than what I counted with. It still makes up for it, or the damage is very, very little. Do you see any? And the other thing is like the space systems growing very, very sluggishly. Like that's another point that can go horribly wrong. But what do you think the chances are of this? Like if we take the bear
The
argument.
bear case. I
Yeah.
mean, if you really were to think about it, the bear case is bankruptcy, right? But I think what's realistic, I don't think bankruptcy for this company. If you were to ask me like Astra or Velo 3D, it's like I feel like those are more there is a case.
Astra might be bankrupt any moment.
Yeah, I mean they have a bridge loan, but they also said that they were going to go private.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you saw that. So they
I
did say
did.
they were trying to go private. What, $1.50 a share or something like that. So like
And
20 odd million.
my question was how, like, even if the company is extremely cheap, I don't understand how this Chris Camp has money to buy out the company. And let's say they do, so now they own 100% of Astra. The company is still burning money. Like, how do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, you have to subsidize it in some way, shape, or form, right? So not 100% sure what's going on there. I don't know if they're going to try to do a licensing deal where they are basically then become, more of like a uh, maybe their thought is, I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I'll just finish this thought is they see that there's 200 or so other companies that really have to get rockets into space, and so they feel like maybe they could be the ones that supply all the engines and things like that could help from a deliverability standpoint. So they're more of like an engine as a service sort of opportunity rather than actually trying to get actual rockets into space. Not 100% sure with that one, but there's that. But um, with respect to, but going back to the Rocket Lab, I think I don't know. I think that it's very hard for me to see this company. I mean, I would probably give it like an 80% chance that maybe even closer to 85 or 90% chance that this thing will exceed $2 billion in market cap, in 2030 timeframe. There's very few scenarios in which I see this goes stagnant and goes into bankruptcy.
Yeah,
Um,
and because the you could say, let's say that Electron has a failure, right? But
mhm.
Electron is a developed vehicle that even when they have a failure, it's like explained, like you don't have to like trash the whole rocket. It's still like a working rocket, and you just have to tweak it, right? So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, I
also
mean, they've discovered so because I think originally they also had a second stage failure, probably like 20 launches ago or something like that. Was very similar to this one. So now it's like they've now solved something that might have been the cause of two failures, right? And so is that going to result in a higher reliability going forward? And the answer might be yes. It might be no. It might create new problems, right? I've seen that happen before in engineering as well. So the truth, I guess, is left to be seen here. But I think with what we have today, you have a rocket that works. Even if they scrap the Neutron program, I feel like they're on a path towards having a really good product on multiple fronts, products, I should say, and growing gross margins in a contracting industry space where more and more people are going bankrupt every day. And the total addressable market is increasing at a substantial pace. And so for me, I see most cases for this, even in a very bearish scenario. Um, I see closer to 85 to 80% of the cases being that this is going to succeed. And to me, I just don't understand how the stock won't double at an absolute minimum, you know,
yeah.
and I would say probably 75% of the cases that I'm thinking of. And then even from there, I think a bearish, balanced 50-50 case, like a probabilistic distribution of 50% of this going towards something like that, what you're sharing, that 10, $11 billion market cap range. And so if you don't have extensive share-based compensation or share dilution, that would be close to a 5x from here. And to me, I think that there is a true opportunity where this thing gets to $100 billion, where the space systems is more expansive than we ever could have imagined. It truly is the end-to-end premier space systems company, which I think that they are potentially getting themselves to be into. ULA is not playing in that space. SpaceX is not playing in that space. There might be some other contractors like GE and stuff of the like that are playing in that space, but for these guys to already be hitting the ground running, with the Psyche mission, having some of the Solero material out there, and just seeing this continue to grow at a pace almost in very short order, I think that the space systems business will get to $100 million a quarter on its own. I would give it probably 2 or 3 years before you're seeing that. I think that they said specifically, was it in 1Q, it's going to be like $65 to $70 million on its own for space systems, and the remaining 25 or 30 million was going to be in launch, right? So I think that they're forecasting 4 to 5 launches in 1Q. So it's like we're going to see this in real time, very short order, of how profitable space systems itself can be, and I think that that's only growing in pace. So anyway, I know I went off on a tangent, might not necessarily have answered your question appropriately, but
no, I think you did. It was a Monte Carlo analysis with the percentage. This what Cathy Wood does with the Monte Carlo, so that they do this analysis, like what percentage chance does the price have to land on here, and then they take the biggest chance, And it's funny because I would think the same way, that there's like a legitimate chance that this could go like over 100 billion, a low chance on the bullish end, and then there is like a low chance on the bearish end that you stay the same. And then like the biggest thing is that it will go like, the biggest likelihood that it will go like 10, 20, 30 billion in valuation.